You've been told your whole life that the world is against you, that success is about competition, about beating others, outrunning them, outperforming them. But that was never the real fight. Because the hardest opponent you will ever face is not out there. It wakes up when you wake up. It knows your fears. It remembers your failures. It whispers the most convincing excuses. It is you, not the version you want to be, the version you are right now. This audiobook is not about motivation. It's about confrontation. Because every life-changing transformation begins with an uncomfortable truth. You are not stuck because of what you lack. You are stuck because of what you tolerate, the habits you excuse, the standards you negotiate, the discipline you postpone. And deep down, you already know this. You feel it late at night when the noise fades and there's no one left to blame. That quiet moment when your future taps you on the shoulder and asks a simple question, is this really who you're becoming? Most people avoid that question. They drown it out with distractions, with entertainment, with endless scrolling, with other people's opinions. Because facing yourself requires courage. In this audiobook, you are not here to be entertained. You are here to be challenged, to strip away the stories, the rationalizations, the comfortable lies, and to finally understand why progress feels so close, yet always out of reach. It's not because you're incapable. It's because the battle has been misunderstood. This is not you versus circumstances, not you versus society, not you versus luck. This is you versus you. Before we continue, I want to say, my dear friend, if you are watching this video, then you are definitely on the right track. Like, subscribe, and write in the comments which topic or problem interests you the most. We promise to prepare a professional video explanation at your request, and only one version walks away with your future. In this audiobook, you will learn how to stop sabotaging yourself quietly, how to build discipline without relying on motivation, how to silence the internal voice that keeps you small, how to become consistent when no one is watching, how to transform identity, not just behavior, because behavior changes fade, identity changes last. And before we go any further, you need to hear this clearly. Nothing in this audiobook will work if you are waiting to feel ready. Readiness is a myth. Winners act before certainty. Losers wait for comfort. And comfort is the enemy. If you are listening to this right now, it means one thing. You are tired of repeating the same year with a different calendar. Tired of knowing what to do but not doing it. Tired of seeing people with less potential go further than you. That frustration is not weakness, it's awareness. And awareness is the beginning of change. This audiobook is your mirror, not to judge you, but to show you who you could become if you stopped betraying yourself. Because the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not talent. It's standards, and standards are chosen. In the next chapter, we will confront the most dangerous enemy of progress, your comfort with being almost disciplined. Because almost is where dreams go to die. And once you see that clearly, you will never negotiate with your weaker self again. Part 2. The Comfort Trap. Why almost disciplined is failing you. There is a version of you that looks productive, busy, informed, motivated at the right moments. This version reads books, watches videos, plans future changes. And yet, nothing truly changes. That version is dangerous. Because it feels like progress without demanding transformation. This is the comfort trap. It's the illusion of effort. You're not lazy. You're not incapable. You're comfortable being almost disciplined, almost waking up early, almost committing fully, almost following through. Almost is the most expensive word in self-improvement, because almost costs time, and time is the only currency you never get back. Your weaker self does not stop you by force. It negotiates. It says, tomorrow will be better. Just this once. You deserve a break. You've done enough for today. And those excuses sound reasonable because they are spoken in your own voice. That's the problem. Self-sabotage is not loud. It's polite. It doesn't tell you to quit. It tells you to delay. And delay is how potential expires. You don't lose your future in one dramatic decision, you lose it in small compromises repeated quietly. That's why discipline is misunderstood. Discipline is not intensity. It's non-negotiation. It's deciding once what matters and refusing to debate it daily. Most people debate themselves every morning. Do I feel like it? Is today the right day? Maybe later. Winners don't ask how they feel. They ask who they decided to be. Identity answers faster than emotion. If you see yourself as someone who trains, you train. If you see yourself as someone who finishes, you finish. But if your identity is flexible, your behavior will be inconsistent. And inconsistency kills momentum. This is why motivation fails. Motivation is emotional. Identity is structural. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. And right now, your standards are being negotiated daily. Not by others, by you. Here's a hard truth most people avoid. Your life looks the way it does because this is the level of discomfort you've accepted. Change requires discomfort. Not chaos, not burnout. Just sustained discomfort. Waking up when it's easier to stay in bed. Starting when it's easier to wait. Continuing when it's easier to stop. That's it. No drama, just decisions. Your stronger self does not need motivation. It needs authority. Authority over impulses. Authority over excuses. Authority over the version of you that wants comfort now at the expense of pride later. This audiobook is about restoring that authority. Because once you stop negotiating with your weaker self, everything accelerates. Progress becomes predictable. Confidence becomes grounded. And self-respect begins to return. In the next part, we'll talk about self-respect, not as a feeling, but as a consequence of action. Because confidence doesn't come from believing in yourself. It comes from proving to yourself that you can be trusted. And that proof changes everything. Part 3. Self-respect is built, not felt. Most people say they want confidence. What they really want is permission to feel good about themselves without changing their behavior. But confidence doesn't work like that. Confidence is not a mindset. It's a byproduct. And the raw material of confidence is self-respect. Self-respect is not something you think into existence. It's something you earn. Quietly, privately, daily. Every time you do what you said you would do, self-respect grows. Every time you break a promise to yourself, it shrinks. That's why motivation feels unreliable. It tries to skip the process. Self-respect never skips steps. Look at the people who truly believe in themselves. Not the loud ones, not the ones who talk the most, the calm ones, the grounded ones. Their confidence doesn't come from hype. It comes from evidence. They have evidence that they show up, evidence that they finish, evidence that they don't collapse under discomfort. That evidence changes how they carry themselves, how they speak, how they decide, how they tolerate less. This is the version of you we are building. Not louder, not flashier, stronger. The problem is that self-respect is fragile. It doesn't shatter from failure. It erodes from excuses, from telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow. It doesn't matter today. No one will know. You always know. And your nervous system keeps score. Every skipped commitment teaches your brain that your word is flexible. Every followed-through commitment teaches it that your word is law. That's why discipline feels heavy at first. You're rebuilding trust with yourself. And trust takes consistency. You don't need massive change. You need unbroken streaks, small promises, kept daily. Wake up when you said you would, train when you plan to, work when it's scheduled, stop when you said stop. Nothing dramatic, just reliable. Self-respect grows fastest in moments where no one is watching, because that's where integrity lives. Integrity is doing the right thing when there is no applause. And integrity compounds. The more you respect yourself, the less you tolerate mediocrity. The less you tolerate mediocrity, the more your life aligns. Suddenly, boundaries become natural. Standards rise automatically. Excuses lose their power. Not because you're forcing discipline, but because breaking discipline would feel beneath you. That's the shift. You don't rise to discipline. You rise from self-respect. And once that foundation is built, everything else becomes easier. In the next part, we will confront a hard reality. Why your environment is either strengthening you or slowly sabotaging you. Because willpower is overrated, and the people who win don't rely on it. They design their world to make weakness expensive and strength inevitable. Part 4. Your environment is either training you or weakening you. Friend, write your opinion on this topic in the comments. Do you agree with us or not? I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Most people believe change is an internal battle. Mindset, willpower, motivation. They're wrong. Change is largely environmental. Your surroundings are shaping your behavior long before your conscious mind gets involved. Your phone, your room, your schedule, the people you spend time with. These things are training you every day, either toward discipline or toward decay. You don't rise or fall by intention alone. You rise or fall by design. Look closely at your environment. Is it engineered for focus or distraction? Is it engineered for growth or comfort? If your environment makes weakness easy, you will eventually give in. Not because you're flawed, because you're human. That's why relying on willpower is a losing strategy. Willpower is limited. Environment is constant. The strongest people you admire are not resisting temptation all day. They've removed it. They don't fight distractions. They don't keep them close. They don't argue with bad habits. They starve them. Your weaker self thrives in clutter, in chaos, in easy dopamine, in constant noise. Your stronger self needs structure, clear spaces, clear rules, clear boundaries. This is not about becoming extreme. It's about becoming intentional. If your phone is always within reach, you will use it. If junk food is always visible, you will eat it. If distractions are one click away, you will click. That's not weakness. That's conditioning. So stop blaming yourself for systems you never designed. Design better systems. Make discipline the default. Lay out your clothes the night before. Prepare your workspace. Remove apps that waste your time. Schedule your priorities first, not last. Small environmental changes create massive behavioral shifts. This is why progress suddenly feels easier when you change locations, routines, or inputs. It's not magic. It's alignment. Your environment is either voting for the future you want or the future you fear. And every day, it casts that vote silently. The most dangerous environments are not chaotic ones, they're comfortable ones. Comfort lowers urgency. Urgency drives change. If everything around you says, you're fine where you are, you will stay there. But if your environment whispers, grow or stagnate, you will rise. This is how you win the battle without constant resistance. You stop forcing strength and start removing friction. In the next part, we will talk about pain. Not how to avoid it, but how to use it. Because the version of you that wins doesn't fear discomfort. They harness it. And once you understand that, you stop running from hard things and start using them as fuel. Part 5. Pain is not the enemy. Avoidance is most people spend their lives running from discomfort. They optimize for ease, for convenience, for relief. And without realizing it, they train themselves to be fragile. Pain itself is not the problem. Avoidance is. Every time you avoid something hard, your world gets smaller. Your confidence shrinks. Your tolerance lowers. Your options disappear. The version of you that wins understands something critical. Pain is information. It tells you where growth is required. It highlights weaknesses. It exposes limits. It reveals where you've been coasting. Avoiding pain feels good short-term, but it creates long-term suffering. Discipline, on the other hand, creates short-term pain and long-term freedom. This is the trade. There is no path without discomfort. The only choice is which discomfort you choose, the pain of effort or the pain of regret, the pain of discipline or the pain of stagnation. Your weaker self chooses comfort now and pays later. Your stronger self chooses effort now and collects later. This is why hard things feel intimidating. They are unfamiliar. But unfamiliar does not mean dangerous. It means unused. Your nervous system adapts quickly. What feels heavy today becomes normal tomorrow if repeated consistently. The problem is, most people quit right before adaptation happens. They misinterpret discomfort as a sign they're not built for it. In reality, it's proof they're stepping forward. Growth always feels like resistance at first. Muscles burn, lungs strain, focus wavers, and then, slowly, capacity increases. This applies to training, to work, to emotional control, to self-discipline. Pain is the doorway. Avoidance is the lock. When you stop running from discomfort, you gain leverage over yourself. You no longer panic when things get hard. You expect it. You welcome it. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because you understand its purpose. The version of you that wins doesn't ask, "How can I make this easier?" They ask, "What is this building in me?" That question reframes everything. Suddenly, effort has meaning. Struggle has direction. Discomfort has value. And once pain loses its power to scare you, excuses lose their power to control you. In the next part, we will talk about focus, why scattered effort keeps you average, and why winning requires ruthless simplicity. Because becoming your best self is not about doing more. It's about doing less, with absolute commitment. Part 6. Focus. Why doing less makes you unstoppable. Please like and subscribe if you want a better future. A better future for your children, your family, and yourself. It's very difficult to achieve success today, but I'm sure you'll succeed. All you have to do is learn and discover new things. Most people don't fail because they lack effort. They fail because their effort is scattered. Too many goals, too many priorities, too many directions. They are busy but not effective. Focus is not about intensity. It's about exclusion. It's the ability to say no to everything that does not move the needle. The version of you that wins is not doing more than everyone else. They are doing less, better. They understand a simple truth. Every yes is a no to something else. When you say yes to distractions, you say no to progress. When you say yes to comfort, you say no to growth. When you say yes to everything, you commit to nothing. Focus requires sacrifice. Not sacrifice of joy, sacrifice of noise. Noise is the enemy of mastery. Endless inputs, endless opinions, endless options. They create confusion, and confusion leads to hesitation. Hesitation kills momentum. Winners simplify. They choose 1 or 2 priorities per season and give them undivided attention. Not forever, but long enough for results to compound. They don't multitask. They sequence. One thing at a time, done fully. Then, move on. This feels slow at first, but it's the fastest way forward. Because progress accelerates when energy is concentrated. Think about a magnifying glass. Diffuse light warms nothing. Focused light burns through steel. That's what focus does to effort. Your life right now is a reflection of where your attention has gone, not where you intended it to go, where it actually went. If you want a different result, you don't need more time. You need clearer priorities. Ask yourself, what am I pretending matters that actually doesn't? What am I avoiding committing to because it would require discomfort? Those answers are not convenient, but they are freeing. Once you decide what truly matters, everything else becomes optional. And optional things stop draining you. Focus also protects your identity. When you chase too many paths, you never fully become anyone. When you commit to one direction, your identity solidifies. You stop questioning yourself constantly. Clarity replaces doubt. And clarity creates momentum. In the next part, we will talk about identity, the deepest layer of transformation. Because lasting change does not come from forcing habits. It comes from becoming someone who naturally lives them. And once that shift happens, the battle between you and you finally begins to tilt in your favor. Part 7. Identity. Becoming the person who wins without force. Habits don't fail first. Identity does. Most people try to change behavior while keeping the same self-image. They want new results without becoming someone new. That never lasts. Because when pressure appears, you don't rise to your goals. You fall back to who you believe you are. Identity is the root. Behavior is the branch. If the root doesn't change, the branch eventually snaps back. This is why discipline feels like force for so many people. They're acting out of character. They see themselves as someone trying to be disciplined, someone working on consistency, someone attempting change. That language matters. Trying implies uncertainty. Winning requires alignment. The version of you that wins doesn't try to show up. They show up because that's who they are. They don't debate effort. They identify with effort. They don't ask, "Should I train today?" They ask, "When will I train?" Identity removes friction. Once something becomes part of who you are, resistance fades. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't motivate yourself. You don't negotiate. You do it because it's you. That's the level we are aiming for with discipline, focus, and growth. Not intensity. Identity. But identity does not change through affirmations. It changes through evidence. Small, repeated actions cast votes for a new self-image. Every workout completed, every task finished, every promise kept, each one whispers, "This is who I am now." At first, the voice is quiet. Your old identity will fight back. It will say, "This isn't you. You've never been consistent. You always quit." Let it speak. Then prove it wrong with action. You don't argue with identity. You outgrow it. Over time, the evidence stacks, and eventually, the internal dialogue changes. I don't miss sessions. I don't quit halfway. I finish what I start. That's when discipline becomes natural, not easy, but automatic. This is the turning point, when the battle shifts from forcing behavior to protecting identity. You no longer ask, "How do I motivate myself?" You ask, "What would someone like me do?" And the answer becomes obvious. In the next part, we will talk about momentum, why consistency creates emotional power, and how to rebuild momentum even after long periods of stagnation, because nobody becomes their best self in a straight line. But those who know how to restart always end up ahead. Part 8. Momentum. How winners restart. When others give up, momentum is not motivation. It's evidence in motion. It's the emotional energy that comes from seeing yourself move forward, even slowly. And here's the truth most people never learn. Momentum is not lost forever. It is only paused. People think falling off means failure. It doesn't. It means you stopped feeding momentum. And anything unfed weakens. The mistake is not stopping. The mistake is waiting too long to restart. Most people fall into an all-or-nothing trap. They miss a day, then miss a week, then decide they've ruined it. That story is a lie. Momentum doesn't require perfection. It requires resumption. Winners are not those who never break streaks. They are the ones who rebuild them quickly. They don't dramatize setbacks. They don't punish themselves. They simply restart, immediately. No speeches, no guilt, no waiting for the right moment. Because the right moment is always now. Momentum begins small. One workout, one focused session, one disciplined decision. That's enough. Your nervous system remembers progress faster than you think. One action reminds you who you are. 2 actions confirm it. 3 actions restart belief. The danger is waiting until motivation returns. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. When you act, your brain catches up. This is why restarting feels harder than continuing. You're fighting inertia. But inertia flips quickly. The moment movement begins, resistance weakens. Momentum is emotional proof that change is real. It quiets doubt. It rebuilds confidence. It restores self-respect. That's why restarting fast matters. The longer you wait, the heavier restarting feels. So winners don't wait. They restart messy, imperfect, uninspired. They don't need to feel like the best version again. They act their way back into it. And each restart strengthens resilience. Because now you're not just disciplined. You're adaptable. You know how to recover. And recovery is a superpower. Life will interrupt you. Schedules will break. Energy will dip. Motivation will disappear. Momentum is not about avoiding that. It's about responding correctly. Fast restarts create long-term consistency, and long-term consistency wins. In the next part, we will confront comparison, the silent killer of self-belief. Because no matter how far you go, if you keep measuring yourself against others, you will never feel ahead. And the version of you that wins does not compete with crowds. They compete with yesterday. Part 9. Comparison. The quiet poison that keeps you small. Dear viewer, please write in the comments what interested you most in the video. This will help us improve our videos. Comparison is subtle. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It shows you someone else's highlight right when you're questioning your progress. And suddenly, everything you've built feels smaller. Not because it is, but because your attention shifted. Comparison is not about information. It's about misalignment. The moment you compare your path to someone else's pace, you abandon your own timeline. And that's where confidence leaks. You start rushing, second-guessing, overcorrecting. You forget why you started. The version of you that wins does not ignore others. They just don't measure themselves against them. Because comparison answers the wrong question. It asks, am I ahead of them? Winners ask, am I ahead of who I was? That question creates stability. When you compete with yourself, progress becomes personal, quiet, meaningful, and immune to external noise. Social comparison destroys focus. It turns growth into performance. Suddenly, you're not improving to become stronger. You're improving to look impressive. That shift is dangerous. It replaces mastery with validation. Validation is addictive, and addicts don't stay disciplined. They chase approval instead of progress. The simple truth is this: there will always be someone ahead of you. Always. You can't outrun infinity, but you can outrun your past. That's the only race that compounds. Every time you choose focus over comparison, you reclaim energy. Every time you stop checking others, you strengthen identity, because identity grows in silence. The most powerful transformations happen without witnesses. You don't need to announce growth. You need to experience it. The strongest people are rarely the loudest. They're too busy building. Comparison fades when purpose is clear. When you know exactly what you're working toward, other people's progress becomes irrelevant. Not threatening, not motivating, just neutral. That neutrality is freedom. If this resonates, pause later and ask yourself, who am I unconsciously competing with that has nothing to do with my path? Letting go of that comparison will feel uncomfortable at first, because comparison became a habit. But once released, clarity rushes in. In the final part, we will close this audiobook, not with hype, but with a decision. Because becoming your best self is not a moment. It's a lifelong contract. And the last question is simple. Which version of you will you keep feeding? Part 10. The decision that defines your life. There is no dramatic ending here. No music swelling. No finish line crossed. No version of you suddenly perfected. Because becoming your best self does not end. It commits. Every day, a decision is made. Whether you notice it or not, you either feed the version of you that seeks comfort, or the version of you that seeks growth. There is no neutral. Every action is a vote. Every excuse is a vote. Every follow-through is a vote. Every delay is a vote. And over time, those votes decide who you become. This audiobook was never about fighting the world. It was about recognizing the real opponent. Not your past, not your circumstances, not other people. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is the version of you that prefers familiarity over fulfillment. And that version will never disappear. It doesn't need to. It only needs to be outgrown. Your stronger self doesn't destroy the weaker one. It outworks it, outdisciplines it, outlasts it, quietly. That's how identity shifts. You don't wake up one day transformed. You wake up one day and realize you no longer argue with yourself. You just act. That's victory. And here's the most important truth of all. You don't need to become extraordinary. You need to become consistent. Extraordinary results come from ordinary actions done without negotiation. When motivation disappears, act. When doubt appears, act. When comfort whispers, act anyway. Not recklessly, deliberately. Because every time you act in alignment with the person you want to become, the internal battle weakens. Eventually, the fight fades. Not because you gave up, but because you won. From this point forward, you have a choice. You can close this audiobook and return to the same patterns, or you can make a quiet contract with yourself. Not to be perfect, not to change everything overnight, but to stop betraying yourself in small ways, to keep promises, especially the invisible ones, to choose discipline over excuses, to respect yourself enough to follow through. If this audiobook resonated, don't let it end as inspiration. Let it end as identity. If you want to anchor that decision, leave a comment with one sentence. The version of me I'm choosing is... And if you want to continue this journey, discipline, focus, emotional control, identity, resilience, subscribe not for motivation, but for accountability. Because the only battle that ever mattered was never against the world. It was always you versus you. And now you know how to win. End.